Welcome to the Lost Signals Reviews, the American Film Institute's Top 100, where we critique the supposed 100 greatest American movies of all time. Join us as we decide if they're worthy of the Mott's Top 100.
Or Mott's. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lost Signals discusses and reviews the AFI. Today we are doing number 29, the film noir classic Double Indemnity. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with Scott Thurlow.
Yeah, see?
Christopher Morgan.
Baby, we're in this for you, baby.
And Cowboy Stephen Arosi.
Hey, all you cool kids. Made that wrong timeline.
And wrong genre.
So this film has more tricks than a carload of monkeys. But with the funny log line, we're passing over to Scott Thurlow.
Well, of course, the insurance man always rings twice.
Or honks the horn 3 times.
Pretty good, yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to go on with the plot. An insurance salesman who has been spending likely an entire decade wondering, if I was going to rob my company, this is how I would do it, gets the excuse when he meets a lonely housewife who wants to murder her husband and claim insurance. And they go through with it, only to find out that Edward G. Robinson is on the case as he meticulously breaks down their meticulous plan to commit murder. It is, was it Dial M for Murder? Yeah. It is a heist film, and it is one of the best film noir picks out there. I really enjoy this work because you're seeing it from the point of view of what would traditionally be an antagonist of a proto film noir. He is working through all of the ways he's going to succeed at this. We watch him pull it off, and then we watch as his boss does reverse Uno and just starts deconstructing his entire plot in front of him, and the tension is absolutely beautiful. You know it's going to fail from the beginning. They set that up. You're just waiting for the shoe to drop. There's the red herrings throughout, and I think it is an entertaining film. And I think it's rightfully known as perhaps the best of the traditional noir sets, and I agree with that fully. So I'm looking at actually a fairly strong 3 just from how well crafted the narrative is.
So that might have convinced me. I was coming here with a very strong 2, certainly. And I said to you, I probably could easily enough be convinced of a 3. And I think the fact that, yes, it holds the template, it uses it, it builds upon it, and in fact, possibly is one of the progenitors of it, really. Mm-hmm. And I'd never seen Double Indemnity. I'd heard of it, I just knew vaguely, what it was about. Is classic noir from 1944, I believe. So yeah, as the plot unfolds, I think it does pace itself out extremely well, very nicely. There might have been 1, maybe 2 moments or instances in which I was but those the minorest of cracks and nitpicks. I don't think, and on retrospect, I think it's totally overwhelmed by the quality of the rest of the plot. So I'm probably looking at a 3 as well, a solid 3, but it just works. It holds together. They explain all the elements, and a lot of it maybe will be parsed out into other questions. But yeah, like you said, for now, I think I'm looking at a 3. So, go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's really well done. There's a real interesting through line throughout the entire movie. Like you said, there's the red herrings that they have. I love the part where the car won't start too. It's oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. But then it just starts, there's a lot of really well done dialogue and just very noir speechifying throughout this movie, and it's freaking great. I just remember watching it and so some of the movies that we've watched recently that are on the AFI Top 100, I have been rolling my eyes at, and finally we have one that's oh, this is old timey, it's of its time, but it also feels real, and this script is good. Like, it's not like everything from back in the day just sucked or like had this like feeling of being out of time, you know?
To be fair, this was a novel, and then Raymond Chandler.
Yeah, Raymond,
Yeah,
Adapted
Raymond
it.
Chandler is
So
screenplay.
you can see his grimy noir fingerprints all
Yeah.
over the script. But that's a dialogue. I'm just
Well,
saying that
and the story though. To
Yeah.
be fair.
but you're right. That does, but that does like help the story, help grease the wheels of the story, I suppose. So yeah, and Billy Wilder does a great job with this one. I really dig his stuff, other than I guess Some Like It Hot for the most part. But 3 for plot. It was great. I loved it the entire time I was watching it.
Yeah, I was on the cusp of a 2 or 3 because there's some other stuff that I'm going to parse. Because this is an incredibly well-paced film, which is unfortunately to the amount of times you have to actually call that out really says a lot about the crap that we're subjected to. I remember seeing this when I was a kid. It does not feel like it's an hour and 47 minutes. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. There's it's that little nagging bit of like the sexism certain here and there, but I'm often loath to say a product of its time. But then again, nobody in this film is awesome. So it kind of evens out. So
But yeah,
Edward G. Robinson is awesome, no matter how you cut it. I mean, he's fucking brilliant. Everybody else in here is pretty much a horrible person anyway. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 3. It's a really solid narrative. It's quite good.
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and just before we go to themes, in terms of the sexism, yeah, it's there, but also, Phyllis is on par, badass, like scheming motherfucker as anybody else in this movie. Like, she is awesome as far as like
Daisy or whatever. Yeah,
Well,
like,
I mean,
if you
it's
want
not-
to even call her a villain goes, like,
yeah, it's definitely not MASH, where it's just complete misogynistic horseshit. I mean, this is kind of a product at the time, but everybody is kind of devious and is a horrible person in their own right. So.
yeah.
But
for Edward G.
I would also say that most of the women in this, their lack of agency is addressed because of the stereotypes of the time. Phyllis is a housewife. She doesn't want to be a housewife, and she's doing everything she can.
Same with Lola.
Lola is stuck in with a domineering father, and she breaks out. So yeah,
actually,
they have a lot of agency to them. They're just their circumstances. But I just want to say that I saw Ocean's 11 because it's on Netflix now randomly the other day, and my God, someone should have sued from Double Indemnity, because I just want to point out how much the first half of this film is a heist film, where you have your red herrings of like, oh, they're going to get caught here, no, and then it turns into a film noir for the second half. So it's actually, I think that's why the pacing works so well, is that it's actually bending, or it almost codified in a way a genre that would come later, but also adapted kind of the dark turns in there. Yeah, so I actually was very impressed by it. Anyway, Chris, on to you, the themes.
Well, it's a noir film, and it's a heist film, and it's about betrayal, and it's about basically who's stabbing who in the back at any given time. I do like the fact that, as you said, the way the narrative's constructed, you don't pull any punches. So themes it's kind of hard to nail down, because this was kind of in the beginning of the noir. So to say anything, all the themes are cliched is kind of like, well, putting it in just perspective.
Because of this.
Yeah, because of this. But it's as you said, it's a heist. It's about betrayal. It's about I guess in some ways it is looking for agency. Because as we just pointed out, it's just like, in order to what's the daughter's name?
Lola.
She doesn't really have any agency, because she's caught between, she's never had any kind of independence. So she's caught between her father and her.
She's trying to have as much as she can, given her.
Yeah.
situation here.
But Phyllis, however, she's a Black Widow, but it's because of her position. It is because of the way women were positioned in those days. So
maybe she just likes to kill people. Who knows?
That's
She's pretty
I was gonna say that's fine.
Those are pretty clear, but
No, so it like I said, I it's hard for me to pin down certain things that aren't just aspects of this thing, but I think it deals with everything fairly well. I mean, like as I just discussed, it's the times kind of greed is always is an ageless thing. So I was going to say it's the time for characters to find agency, but it's greed and duplicity, so, but I'm going to give it a 1.
I'm going to build off of what you said, because you're right about greed. It's traditional film noirs are inherently morality tales. You're watching bad people try to get away with bad things and end up getting punished for it. And this one is actually very rife with terrible people who get their comeuppance almost deservedly. Phyllis ended up getting shot by Walter. Walter wants to escape by death, but he's caught in the system. But part of the morality thing is Walter is an intelligent man with a decent job, but he has ambitions beyond that. He thinks he's smarter than the system is and thinks he can outwild the system. And then it's not the system that beats him. We're shown that the system itself, that the head of the insurance company is an idiot. It's Edward G. Robinson's Keyes, who is the moral force in here, who is just outsmarts him. And it is so that there is that end of trying to give us a fulfillment of chaos, but also reinforce order. That's what traditional film noir is about. Neo noir is about the chaos. Traditional film noir is about order in a sense. So it's effective.
No, I mean, I'm going to build upon what you said, what both of you now said. So that's what I noticed the most. That yes, and this I think, Chris, is where I'm justified with using the sign of the times, because it's just about the end of World War II in America, and so bad people are doing bad shit for bad reasons, right? But in the end, they all get caught and they all get justice is served in a sense. Now that is, of course, the morality tale there, the morality part of it. Now, yes, as we moved on, as film and society moved on from that, it gets a little more cynical, but I think that was certainly the intention of this film and others like it with this story. And yes, it does touch on a few other things like the agency of women, at the time and the place as well, and how they people it could feel trapped in their situations, and that certainly spurs their whole conspiratorial plot. And that I think will go to characters a bit as well. But yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 1 because of that, because it does work as such, as sort of a fairy morality tale, as you guys said. It does hold up to that. Now, whether or not that sort of that facade has crumbled away in the 50, 60 years since, maybe so, but it still stands as sort of a pillar of it.
So, Chris, I'm going to pull you with when you reference Star Trek, but I'm going to reference Sopranos. But in a sense, it's about there is Breaking Bad, Sopranos things like that are catharsis of living through the villain. And actually, David Chase in Sopranos didn't have Tony getting killed at the end because he didn't want us to vicariously live through Tony Soprano to enjoy his comeuppance, to forgive ourselves. That was part of the reason for it, wherein we can enjoy both Walter White and Walter from this as living above smarter than the situation they're in, and getting punished for it, so we can live vicariously through their intelligence, and then be like, oh, I can't do that because I would get caught too. It's a fascinating psychological aspect to it. But
can I just say something about that? Because you said the reason they didn't kill Tony Soprano is for that reason. The interesting thing, though, and I don't mean to diverge, but but with Sopranos, I thought it ended perfectly because that paranoia and everything, that's the rest of their lives until they die. Mm-hmm. So I was going to say he may have been trying to avoid that, but by the same token, living in that limbo for the rest of your life, is a pretty horrible comeuppance. So
Like, that was kind of the point, but I get it. So yeah, I'm just saying I'm giving Indemnity a 1 because it touches those bases and I think still holds up well enough to the themes. Go ahead, Steve-O.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give it a 1 as well. I think the themes are really strong. There is this interesting touching upon like greed and how it affects people, and like what is her greed even for? Like, I'm interested in like what Phyllis's greed is even actually for, right? Like she wants the money, but I'm not sure that that's what she wants. She wants something, and she wants power, like, right, over her life, over her own life, and she doesn't have it. And like that's a really fascinating thing that happens throughout the course of this is like as she feels the power slipping away, her power with Walter slipping away, she tries to call him out for it and like bring him to heel basically when she says, oh, you could leave me, or like now that we can be together, you don't want to be with me, or whatever it is. Like there's this really interesting take on that whole thing. And yeah, it is certainly greed, but it's like, that's what I like about noir. It's not ever exactly what's on the surface. It's always what's like bubbling
Not
underneath and
cut.
like what's, yeah. And I think that this, film does a fantastic job showing that. That said, I mean, I think you guys have mentioned a lot of good points already. And that was my biggest one. So I'm going to give it a 1 and we can move on.
It's always power. Well, we're moving on with you, Steve-O, with antagonist.
I think Scott's got antagonist.
Oh, sorry. Scott has antagonist.
Nice
Yes.
double.
You're both
red
S's, so
Yeah.
No, so this one's like a little, not iffy, but like a little more interesting than it seems on the surface because of the fact that you guys mentioned that, and I guess it follows suit with the next question. So, in theory, Walter's like, a workaday guy, but like clearly he's been thinking about, like you said, like almost like a sort of like an offhanded game with himself. If I was going to commit insurance fraud for my own company, how would I do it? And then he's offered an opportunity with, of course, like a very classically set up femme fatale character. So essentially, like, Phyllis almost becomes an antagonist to him. I think she certainly is in the latter half. As you said, Steve, as the relationship sort of devolves and they realize like they start splitting apart and they conspire to murder each other to get out of it, right? So like, and then of course he's got Keys, like ostensibly one of his good friends and boss, like figuring it all out. Like Keys knows exactly what happened. He doesn't know that it's Walter per se until the very end, but he knows that it's fraud. He knows that it's murder. He knows like how more or less how the crime was committed, right? So like, and Walter starts feeling the pressure of that as well. So I think it's sort of like a conglomeration, I guess I'll say, of both of those things, which again, like some of it might bleed over to the next question or two. But I think that was like the pressure that mounts upon ostensibly the main character. And I think it was really well handled because it's very nuanced, or at least it's more gray area than it is black and white on the surface, like you said, Steve-O, than it might appear to be, which of course is a hallmark of all good noirs. So yeah, I think it certainly works well. I'm going to give it a 1, and that's how I view the antagonist front. But if you guys might have some other interpretation or other things to add, certainly. But that's how I'm looking at it, and that's how I'm scoring it.
It's interesting. I don't know exactly. Like the more I think about it, the less I know, I guess, like any good noir. But
that's why it's good.
I kind of want to go with Phyllis as the antagonist because she is the antagonist to the person who's telling the story. Like he's very clearly telling the story, right?
I mean, that's
so he is his own hero in the story. Mm-hmm. Whether it's anti-hero or what, he's the protagonist. Walter is the protagonist of his own tale that he's telling, which makes Phyllis, by definition, I think, the antagonist.
I'm with you.
I would say, to some degree, I guess, like the people chasing them, but not ever really. Like that never felt like an antagonist to me. What felt antagonistic was their relationship.
You didn't feel Edward G. Robinson was the catalyst to all of the negativity in Walter's life. He's watching the noose slowly slip around
breathing
him.
Down his neck, and
he figures out Phyllis, even though he doesn't figure out Walter. But by figuring out Phyllis, he's antagonizing Walter. I think
that's interesting.
He's the traditional hero but we're seeing it from Walter's point of view.
Right.
It's
And
he's Hank from Breaking Bad. These are the same exact fucking move.
Yeah. I mean, he absolutely is. He feels like, I guess he is a type of, like, he's the indirect antagonism, right? I almost want to say, like,
I'm saying it's 50-50 to me between Phyllis and him, Steve-O. But
Scott, who did you consider the antagonist was?
like I said, 50-50 between Phyllis and Keys. Because
Okay.
they're the forces that combine, that put pressure on, ostensibly, like I said, our protagonist, Walter. And that spurs him and makes him, like, question his decisions, makes him, like, make decisions that probably don't help him out as much. It throws off his like, very meticulously put together plan as it unfolds. So that's all I'm saying, and that's why
I can give him credit for that, probably solely because I think he's too strongly involved in the plot to be considered a supporting character. And, like, you're right, he is that, like, but, like, it's almost like he's not the problem in terms of, like, how Walter feels. Keys is never the problem. He loves Keys.
but he
says it all throughout. He's like, Keys, you're gonna get me, but, like, that's, I could accept that if, like, and he's always trying to outfox him throughout, and he does, like, he actually does, and there are definitely ways where Walter could get away with this, but he kind of
that would result in him murdering every other person involved with it.
Yeah, exactly. He decides not to do that, I guess.
No, he only doesn't do it because he got shot first. Like, that's it's
No. He finally has a little bit of a conscience when he sends the kid away, or whatever his name was. Nino
Scorbretti,
Oh, yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
You're right. But I'm saying, like,
But either way, it's a very strong one for me.
go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, Scott, what were you gonna say?
I just said, go ahead, Chris.
Ian, did you have anything to chime in on?
I just want to say
I'm
that
gonna tell everybody else to talk.
Edward J. Robinson is the hero of this work. I don't think this would have been anywhere near as fascinating of a work if not for his performance as Keys. It is so delightful to watch him be the bumbling inspector. And again, I think he's the full. You can say that Phyllis is the directing, but it's his unraveling of the whole system that causes the bad people to turn upon each other. So I just want to say that I love it. His performance is fantastic.
I will just reinforce that I think it's both. He feels the pressure on both ends, so that's why I'm giving him, combining them to give them.
Agree.
See, this is the one thing I was really stuck on, because Walter comes into her house, like, first thing, like, throws his hat down, lights up a cigarette. I mean, feeds the fish. He's just got this audacity about him. And you know how, like, a lot of times, society will say, "Oh, the girl was asking for it." He was asking for it. He was looking for this.
He was John Connery, James Bonding it for sure.
Yeah.
And it was a little uncomfortable.
He was looking for this. He knew the system. He, like in Brazil, he wasn't accepting promotion. He was looking for something. He's stuck in this routine. So like Edward G. Robinson, I don't really see him. I see him more. I guess I'll talk about him when we get to more of a supporting role, because I definitely do see he's the hero in all this.
Traditionally, Beaver's not getting it from his viewpoint.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's really kind of hard to pick an antagonist, because I mean, I was actually going to say, if we're going to pick a protagonist, I'm probably going to say that, Walter and Phyllis, it's their own fucking fault. They did this all to themselves. I mean, so if I'm going to be, it's going to have to be
protagonist and villain are kind of different things, though. Like that.
I mean,
that's what Noir does, though.
All right, I'm going to say that they're both the I'm going to say that Walter and Phyllis are the antagonists.
Walter's the antagonist of his own story that he's telling to you?
I mean,
yes,
he is hoisted by his own petard, if you will, to a degree.
Yes, he most certainly is.
Yeah.
Well, that was a forceful clank by someone. All right.
With that drink, Eugene.
We'll see. Talk about the protagonist.
So I view it as Walter played by Fred McMurray, and you're absolutely right. Edward G. Robinson is amazing in this, and I think Fred McMurray does an equally good job
Both play
to
off
him.
each other extremely well. Yeah.
He is just this like leading man that I don't recall having seen. This is the first time I'm seeing this movie. I don't recall having seen any like Humphrey Bogart and shit is the guy that gets all the heat from this era or around this era, and like I think Fred McMurray is a better actor. Almost everybody that you see act in that era seems like really stage play almost, or like wooden to a degree, like acting, like reading from a script. And he seems like he's like comfortable at home on a set. Like it's just like something I don't normally see on movies from the 40s and around that, like 30s and 40s around that era. And I was really glad to see that. Like I was like, oh, so they're like, this was possible to like make a movie like this. All right, cool. How come more people didn't do it? Maybe it was hard or whatever. The acting style didn't evolve into something more natural later on. But just in terms of like the style, I loved it. And in terms of the protagonist, him like telling his own story, warts and all, into like the recorder for.
I mean, it's so fucking noir.
For Barton Key, like for Keys the next day. There's a lot. I was going to talk about this in dialogue, but I just mentioned it briefly here. What makes him so good is his interactions with everybody, but especially with Keys. Like when they're together, there's like this electric, and with Phyllis as well. I think that they have a really good dynamic. But there's a point where it kind of runs together, where he like walks into her house for the first time, and maybe the housekeeper or something says like they keep their liquor locked up, and he's like, I always have my keys.
I carry my own key or something. Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, it's terrible, but so good.
It's so noir.
So like I don't know. I just really dug like a whole bunch of like everything about his character. It was very flawed and very messed up. And like in a way that I guess you do see in noir movies, but like you don't see in a lot of movies from this era. And I really like that take on like it's a actual take on humanity, not like this binary system. And I love that. So I'm going to give Protagonist a strong one.
No, you're right. I mean, I'm just going to follow up with a few more things. I absolutely agree. He's very charismatic, of course, which goes a long way. And he plays like, I'll give a lot of credit, which we'll get to, of course, like you said, in dialogue and stuff. But what he's saying, it's almost like Sorkin-esque, the way he presents himself, right? So he's very nuanced. Sorry, but we'll get to it. Right? But that means, as you said, as Fred McMurray plays it, right, you understand his character and you're sort of sympathetic to a large degree, even when he starts to devolving into this, like, murderous plot, really, and gets sucked in by Phyllis. And, like, they both sort of are in a somewhat toxic relationship with each other, more or less. But,
very toxic.
So, like, it only gets worse as it goes on, for sure. Yeah. So, like, but I'm saying you understand who he is, his motivations, where he's coming from. And he's just so natural with it and charismatic with everyone, and especially with Edward G. as Keys, for sure, that, yeah, I'm giving him a very strong one. He's an interesting, well-done, well-rounded protagonist. So,
no, I think he was phenomenal for all the points you guys said. So I'm not probably going to add anything to it.
He was a piece of shit, but he was a good protagonist. But I also have to say one thing, and this is totally going to age me. So yeah, Grandpa. I watched this with my mom when I was a kid because we'd stay.
When it came out in theaters?
I think 44.
Fuck you. My mom wasn't even bored then.
You set me up for that one. Come on.
Yeah, but the thing is, my mom used to work till 11 o'clock. We used to stay up all night and watch like noir and horror films. But when I was a kid, I used to watch this show, My Three Sons, and it was kind of like a sitcom from the 60s, a lot of white people. So this is the first time I saw Fred McMurray in a serious role. So I was like, it kind of blew me away because I'm like, what the fuck? I'm used to seeing him as this wholesome dad, and here he is, this piece of shit now. So even though I didn't quite phrase it that way, so yeah, I'm going to give him one.
Very nice.
All right, well, I'm going to talk about secondary characters. One, since I didn't put Phyllis into a thing, I know it's when you disagree with that. I'm just going to say her 1,000-yard stare was amazing. But I have to say that Nino was a nothing character. The boss had a humorous moment, but I actually had quite a lot of sympathy for Lola. Because Edward G. Robinson, as great of a character as I think he is the old bumbling detective stereotype. Lola here is the moral center, even though she's not perfect by any means either. And I think she does a good job of providing that hope that would be lost in later neo-noir works. So I'm probably going to give it a 1, although I could be convinced down to a 0 if anyone has a good argument.
No, I mean, like, I'm probably going to go along with it. Like, even though I did, like, of course, if we say that Keyes is, like, a secondary character, he's, like, by far the best and most important one. But I think I can get away with cutting it up almost like he's a secondary character, but he's also an antagonist, as we already just talked out, to Walter, right? But I think the Lola point is really good because she might not be perfect, but she's the most innocent one. Like, she figures it out even, or she very highly suspects / has known that Phyllis murdered her original mother, like her, and then married George, whatever his name is, like her father, right? She knows that Phyllis is up to no good, is basically a Black Widow. She just can't quite prove it, but she's for sure certain of it. And she's just trying, again, to live her life. And, she's not conspiring. She's not doing any crimes. She's just trying to, like, hold the light up to it and be like, this is what's happening. Please, someone help me. Like, can anyone see? Like, I'm telling you.
Well, someone pay attention to me.
Will someone help this poor woman? But, yeah. So, you're right. It's not a huge cast either. And her lover, Nino, is, like, fine. I actually thought he got a little slightly more interesting later on in, like, the latter third of the film, we'll say. Well, like, he was still finally there. And so, yeah. So, like, maybe I'll give, like, a little bit of half credit. Like I said, split up the difference for Keyes, for sure Lola, and that all equals a 1 for me. So
I'll tell you what, there's something that we used to do on this show where it was like, if I love any of these supporting characters, it's going to get a 1. And the only reason that this is getting a 1 is for Lola.
all right, yeah, that's fair.
I don't give a shit about Nino.
Fair, dude.
Phyllis's husband is literally listed as Mr. Dietrichson. He has no first name in the cast list.
3 maybe.
Keyes, I count as an antagonist, so I'm not gonna, like, we counted as an antagonist before. Phyllis the same. Walter protagonist. So yeah, the only one of these supporting characters that I really give a shit about is Lola, and she does a phenomenal job in this.
Certainly enough.
The actor is Jean Heather, and she is, has this whole little arc of her own. She has this whole, like, coming to terms with the fact that, her stepmother A, killed her mom, and B, like, killed her dad. Like, she has this whole, like, wrestling with
and it's also manipulating her boyfriend.
Whatever, like, the circumstances.
With her boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And she thinks it might have been him. Like, there's this whole shit. So, like, I love that character. I think she did a phenomenal job. I'm gonna give her 1 for that.
Yep, right on.
Now I'm really glad that I saved Keyes for supporting, because now that you guys brought up Lola, I think it's funny, the character with the least amount of agency and the most sympathetic, and the person who not directly has the most agency, but with regard to being like the man kind of agency, are the two that basically figure it out. Like, if you combine them, they put all the pieces together. And I think that makes a really interesting dynamic. So just because, and I'm glad I saved it for this, because I'm like, all right, I was like trying to figure out where did Keyes fit in, and then when you guys brought up Lola, I'm like, yep, this totally makes sense. So I'm giving it a very strong 1.
Awesome. Well, Chris, keep talking about dialogue.
Now this one's really difficult, because on the one hand, the dialogue, but on the other hand, baby, I couldn't stand baby fucking hearing baby one more fucking baby time, baby.
Well, baby,
And basically, baby, the best dialogue, baby, was from Edward G. Robinson, baby, and his dialogue I loved, baby, but I just hated the fucking baby. It was grating on my nerves.
Got your point.
So that fucking baby, I have to give this a 0, baby. There's just no way around it.
Interesting.
All right. Well, listen to me, baby, if you will, because I just have a short, but perhaps, like, it's Raymond Chandler dialogue, as we mentioned. And I think that combined with the natural delivery, like, okay, you're saying it grated on you, Chris. This is like the most prototypical noir dialogue there ever can be, but it works because they don't oversell it, because they keep it subtle, they keep it natural. So yeah, like you've seen it parodied and like satirized so many times, but it had to have come from something. So I'm saying it worked for me. Like I get what you're saying, I noticed it, but it worked. I felt it made sense for the characters to be saying that, and especially when he's doing, the voiceover shit that noir is known for. So I'm giving it a 1 because of that, and I'm not, saying that maybe doesn't or convinces you like totally, but I was expecting to be like, oh, it's going to be stilted, whatever. But no, I think it worked because of the way the script and the actors combined to sell it to a very, very large degree and make it believable and natural, and that these characters are doing and saying these things. So.
And I agree with you mostly, but this is out of the Ian playbook. Sorry, Ian. But after a while, the babies started taking me out of it. It had to.
Sounds like a personal problem.
I agree to a certain extent with you. It just didn't bother me as much as it did. I love film noir. I think that Bruce Campbell stole his entire shtick from this movie. But however, it's so drenched. And the important part is that parody would have, sort of to your point, would have overdone it a little bit. This is overdone, but earnestly. Like they're trying to make it sound like a dime store novel, and they 100% did. And this is a personal bias of mine. I love this shit, and it worked. It affected me perfectly. So I'm giving it a very strong 1.
So I wasn't going to try and convince you to change your score, Chris, but now I might. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she never calls him any pet names, right, throughout the movie? He just calls her baby.
I think she says honey once or twice.
I don't think she does. And here's why. I mean, she might, and I might be wrong about this, but here's my argument. I think that them hammering on the baby, and don't get me wrong, I'll just say this. No, 1 for dialogue. I love all the dialogue. The babies, I get why it's annoying, but I think what they're trying to do is show that he actually has like feelings, and she's a sociopath or even a psychopath who can't actually evolve feelings, right? So like he's like giving her a pet name, like kind of doting on her at every move, and he is driven crazy when he realizes that she's fucking a psycho or a sociopath at least, and it has these crimes of passion. But I think that what it was trying to be was like, hey, he's the one that actually has emotions, so he's gonna like have a pet name for her. He's gonna fucking call her baby all the time or whatever, and she is gonna be like very more
removed.
Yeah, I don't know what the word I was trying to look for was. Distant. And that was just an idea that came into my head about 5.5 seconds ago, so not very well formed.
He makes the easy mistake of early men with conflating lust and love, and dies because of it.
Indeed.
All right, I'm gonna say this, that I am gonna change my score because I agree with you. I love noir, but the babies took me out of it. But then I realized he's a fucking sociopath too, and his babies
playing each other.
But the whole thing, his babies are about as sincere as her saying, "I love you, Walter. I love you, Walter." I don't believe either one of these two assholes. They're both sociopaths. They both think they're smarter than they are.
That's the whole point, Chris, I think, at the end of the day.
So yeah, in that context, the fucking grading babies works.
Are you saying he's basically gaslighting her into making her think he loves her by constantly referring to baby?
Each other.
No, I agree with Steve-O. Was it Steve-O who said that they don't really have a conception of it, so he thinks he does. She knows she doesn't love him. He thinks he does love her, but he doesn't. It's very superficial. They're both sociopaths.
So down the gaslight hole.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll give it a 1. You convinced me, Steve. Nice work.
Nice. All right, Scott. Yes. Onto you with style.
Motherfucking 1, man. Like again, if you're gonna point to a noir film and be like, this is what noir style and cinematography looks like, this is a motherfucking fantastic one to do. It's got the chiaroscuro, it has all the elements that you know and familiar with, or at least that are taken from noir films. The shadows, of course, it's in black and white, and so like a little bit grainy here and there, and just the framing, the fucking lighting. Of course, that's what noir is. It's black, the dark shadows against the wall, like. And Fred McMurray happens to be a very tall gentleman. So when he's walking on a hallway or like in a street or whatever, like his shadow casts a long shadow. And of course, they did it all on purpose. But the whole movie is like that. Phyllis, like half in the shade when she's about to shoot him, like the whole way through. And I was super impressed with it. And the soundtrack also is amazing. So I'll let you guys maybe expand upon that. But I'm just saying, cinematographer-wise, Billy Wilder, as this film being one of, if not the quintessential noirs, then you have to give it a 1, I think. So with that, I will.
I thought the soundtrack was amazing, and I thought it was an incredibly paced film, and I love noir. It's getting a 1.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 1 too. It's really impressive. One of the things that really stuck out to me was, and I haven't thought about this scene in however long it's been, since probably a month after we did The Apartment. But do you guys remember the scene with all the desks?
Yep.
They did like a very early version of that scene in this, and I was like, holy shit, that's the scene from The Apartment. Like my fucking hat flew off my head.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it was really impressive. But like, the cinematography, terrific. The music was amazing. And I have to give it absolute full credit for style. Like you said earlier, it was like proto Sorkin, basically. Billy Wilder has this like quick dialogue, and I guess that's probably down to Raymond Chandler too. But like has this very quick dialogue and very like this patter that the characters have, and they're very clever in the same way that Sorkin's always very clever.
The shots as well is all I'm saying.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned all the things. I already said the always have my own keys line. So I think I mentioned everything that I had written down that I wanted to say. And I'm going to give it a strong 1.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of film noir. I'm kind of going to the next question, which is recommendation, but I think that this is the perfect example of a film noir, of a traditional film noir to put on the AFI. So, Steve-O, would you like to take over for me on recommendation?
I completely agree with you. This is perhaps the best film noir movie I've ever seen. At least up there in my estimation. And, not that I've seen every single one ever, but I've seen a lot of the really good ones. And this movie, which I had not seen before, and had been hearing about for years, was fucking awesome. And I was really glad to see, like, I know I said this earlier, but I was really glad to see a movie from like the 40s, 50s or earlier. We've been watching a bunch of those movies that have been kind of disappointing to me lately from the AFI of late, in the last few months or whatever. So I was glad to see one like really be top notch, and really serve its genre well. So I'm going to give it a strong 1 for recommendation.
I mean, I'm disappointed in the fact that I did not get to see this. When I took film classes, I didn't get to see this one. Like, they didn't show it to me. Steve-O's freezing, so hopefully that's okay. But I'll just keep speaking. So having seen it now, fuck yeah, I recommend it. So it's number 29, so it just scrapes on the top 30. That's fine. You can maybe put it a little higher, a little bit here and there, but I will definitely recommend it. Full marks. Definitely see some Indemnity, especially if a fan of noir. Probably seen it anyways, but if not, if you like any kind of noir in general, or like, murder mysteries, definitely check it out.
I'm going to give a little backstory here. It's funny is that this is actually based on a true story. A journalist in New York basically attended and Steve-O is...
Chris Morgan is the host now.
Hey.
Steve-O just got removed from the plot of the film of our review.
So, we'll continue recording here. Anyway, so basically this woman had her lover kill her husband and got an insurance thing on it. And basically a journalist was like, this is such an interesting story. This would make a great novel. And they made a novel based on it. And then Billy Wilder was like, this would make a great fucking movie. And they made a movie on it. And I fully recommend this. And I think it's a phenomenal thing. So Chris, do you still have to go for a recommendation?
Yeah, this is never a question in my mind. Even no. I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but I'm going to. We were trying to figure out what to do this week. We kept circling around this. I'm like, let's just fucking do Double Indemnity, because I remember seeing it as a kid. We all love noir.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I hadn't seen this in a long time. And it's really funny. I forgot about the baby, which grated on my nerve. But once I realized, we're dealing with a couple of sociopaths whose sincerity is about as thin as a holy wafer. And about as sustainable too, has as much sustenance to it. And and to back up something somebody said, it was refreshing to actually see something on the AFI, because Beth and I just started watching Community. Yes, all right. We just started watching it, and oh crap, Abad, oh fuck, Ahmed. Abed, sorry, is really big into pop culture, and he keeps referring to MASH. And the movie MASH left such a bad taste in my mouth that I have to remember to go back and watch the series, because the movie MASH was so awful. Mm-hmm. So coming back and seeing, this film was just like, oh, okay. So there is something from my childhood that still holds up that I remember. So
I got you.
Yeah, and go on.
So we've given this a 10, which I agree with. I think it's one of the better film noirs and deserves its place on AFI. Is Billy Wilder one of the better directors of American cinema?
At this point, I have to say yes. He only made one film that I didn't like, and he made two, at least possibly three, if I can think of them, that I did think were quite strong and quite good from the era. So I would say yes.
Abed, that's his name.
Yeah.
Abed.
Yeah. Cool. So Billy Wilder was one of the best directors in American cinema.
This is I'm trying to think of the rest of his catalog, but I mean, I agree.
He did Apartment, which was great. If you haven't, seen that.
It's really funny. I haven't seen The Apartment, but I fucking hated Some Like It Hot. But I knew he was better than that movie. So,
It's Sunset Boulevard too, which real quickly is
we
on
haven't
the AFI,
seen yet,
which is higher than this on the AFI. But
and I look forward to seeing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're going to go investigate the murder of Stephen Ramosi.
His strange disappearance.
I'm Jonathan A. Manzer, here with Christopher Morgan.
See you later, baby.
And Scott Thurlow.
There's always another angle, see? Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Peace. Editing and engineering by Stephen Ramosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.